You know, I was thinking, yesterday's video, I said that the Gospel Coalition is less than worthless. And, I did something that I don't normally do. I said, hey, they're not talking about this amazing event yesterday and all of that. And I started to feel bad about that, because there's a reason why I don't normally do that kind of stuff. And maybe I should just wait before I say anything. Anyway, so I decided this morning when I woke up, let me check out Gospel Coalition today. And I checked out Gospel Coalition this morning, and of course, it's still a bunch of nonsense that's totally worthless for basically everybody. And I felt a little bit more justified. And then I had an idea, maybe we can revisit, some of these old articles so I can explain to you how not only is it totally worthless, but it's actually less than worthless. It actually, if you read Gospel Coalition and take it seriously, on any kind of cultural issues, current affairs, and stuff like that, you're very likely to be intentionally misled about what the situations that you face in daily life are like. And so let's revisit this. This is Why I Hate August by K. Edward Copeland. Let's begin. I had the idea to do this video before Charlie Kirk's assassination, but then today I was reminded about it because I saw my friends over in Ogden, Utah, getting in trouble with a very troubled and concerned and worried and scared Owen Strawn, talking about how they're racist, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And so I thought I'd add my 2 cents because I agree with those guys. And as the token minority in a lot of these circles, I feel like I can offer a little bit of an explanation, a little bit of an extra side to this that maybe some people, maybe are too afraid to say. And not the Ogden guys. I mean, they'll say whatever. They don't care. But maybe some people still kind of want to hear it from a minority, right? Maybe they can hear it from a minority. And so here I am. I want to talk to you a little bit about, one issue with black culture. You know what I mean? Now, you might say, hey, AD, you're not black. You're not part of black culture. What do you know? And that's true. I'm not black. But I have spent time with black people. And, a lot of that time I've enjoyed. Some of it not as much. But I'm very, very aware of the different the nuances, you might say, of black culture. Now, your boy AD, may have at various points in his life had the old the coveted N-word pass, if you know what that is. I didn't really take too much advantage of that. I may have used it from time to time, but even when you have the pass, you gotta be a little careful with which situations you deploy the use of that pass at any given time. So I've hung around, I've got stories. And my brother the other day, I think I told you guys this on either Twitter or YouTube. My brother the other day showed me a very hilarious YouTube channel by a black guy who talks about different situations you might find yourself in the hood and how to survive them, how to spot them. If you've never been to the hood, there are certain situations and certain turns of phrases that you might not know that you're in danger, but you are. And maybe you just feel like you're in danger all the time when you're in the hood, but that's not really true. And there's different kinds of hoods and stuff like that. But there are certain things that are you can see or hear that'll lead you to understand that you're in danger. If you want to check out this channel, it's again, viewer discretion advised. It's by a guy named O-Dog, and he explains it, and he also can explain it too in a very funny way. If you're black or maybe you're white, whether you're male or female, the different kinds of situations you may find yourselves in and how to survive them or to avoid them altogether, which is ideally what you want to do. But you can find yourself in the hood too. That's the thing. Some people will say, well, I just don't ever go to the hood, and good on you if you never go to the hood. But the hood is close to you. You know what I mean? Like, you never know when you might find yourself in the hood. I remember when I lived in Maryland, sometimes I'd go to an Orioles game, just go catch a ball game with the guys, that kind of thing. And Camden Yards, a beautiful park. And the thing about Camden Yards, though, is if you take a wrong turn, it's only a few seconds before you're in the hood. like the hood. So you could accidentally find yourself in the hood, and you need to know how to survive. O-Dog, if you want to check it out. But in any case, let's talk about the article. Okay, this is K. Edward Copeland, Why I Hate August. Famous Gospel Coalition article. Very terrible. But in it, of course, he laments different things about racism and things like that. Blah, 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 blah. Who cares? He says this. He says that there's an egregious contrast. That's quite a big word. Egregious contrast. He says this August, however, the hurt is amplified by an egregious contrast. Kyle Rittenhouse killed people in the middle of the street, on camera, in front of witnesses, and then, smoking rifle at his side, he casually strolled past law enforcement. He didn't run away, he didn't hide, he showed no fear. He assumed that there was something about his person that would allow him to approach law enforcement with a visible semi-automatic weapon that had just taken lives and lived to tell about it. More than a few witnesses pointed out that he had just shot several people, yet he was able to leave the scene in the state. When armed shooters like Kyle Rittenhouse, Dylan Wolf, Roof, etc. are apprehended without incident, and unarmed black people are killed out of fear that they might be armed, we have a more insidious problem than a few bad apples. This thing is cultural, pervasive, and abominable. And abominable. If your default impulse is to try to justify the 7 or 8 bullet holes in Jacob Blake's body, he is no angel. What was in his system? He was probably reaching for a weapon. He should have complied. We don't have all the facts. Just consider the facts that we do actually know about Kyle. He took lives in front of physical and digital witnesses. He's alive. No bullet holes in his body. He will be charged and tried in court, not on the streets, just as it should be in a just society. The inconsistency between how these two bodies were treated in Kenosha reinforces my childhood suspicions that those who claim same convictions about Christ will be the first and loudest to castigate me for these observations. They'll be the most proficient at finding some excuse for Rittenhouse, the most cavalier in discounting my trauma, and the most eager to find a Marxist or critical race theory connection in my reflections. That hurts my heart. That hurts his heart. Literally and profoundly. Well, K. Edward Copeland, guess what? I don't care if your heart is hurt. At all. So there you go. You know, this is the thing. Like, we're expected to sort of respond to women and black people as if when they are feeling upset, their hurt feelings are hurt, that we just have to put it out somehow. We got to do something about this, right? We just got to do something. And I'm not going to do that because here's the thing, guys. This might seem kind of normal, innocuous, woke stuff, right? But this is actually pretty insidious. And all you have to do to know how insidious this is just look at the circumstances here, right? Well, what he's trying to say is that Kyle Rittenhouse, you know, he was apprehended without incident, and Jacob Blake wasn't. And the only difference between the two is that Kyle's white and Jacob's black, right? That's the narrative that he wants you to listen to. And most people just accept it when they read this kind of insane article, right? Because they assume that K. Edward Copeland, the author of this article, is either a good enough guy to not lie to them, obviously, or he's smart enough to know the difference between the two, right? He's smart enough to know the difference, and he's too good a guy to lie to you overtly. Right? And I'm not here to tell you that he's one or the other, that he's not smart enough to know the difference, or that he's lying to you. I don't know which one it is, but I treat them the same way because it really doesn't make too much of a difference in how I'm going to respond to it. So the two options for K. Edward Copeland is that he's not intelligent enough to know to see the difference, and the only thing he can see is white and black, and he's like, "Dang, black and white guy body, black body." And it's just that's the difference. Or he is smart enough and he's just lying to you. Lying to you by omission, lying to you by implication, whatever it is, he's just lying to you. Because these two individuals and the situations leading up to the arrests could not be more different. And there's actually a cultural reason for this, and I'll explain that in a minute. But if you look into the cases, what happened here is Kyle Rittenhouse was apprehended without incident. And here's why. Kyle Rittenhouse didn't resist arrest. Kyle Rittenhouse, when he was arrested, didn't resist. He just allowed himself to be arrested. Now, you might say, well, maybe he did that because he knew he would get away with it anyway. I don't know. All right, maybe he did that because he wasn't guilty. I don't know. Maybe he did that because that's kind of part of white culture in general. You just, the authority comes, says you're coming with me, and you go with them. That's how it is. I don't know the reason, but that's the facts. That's the facts. He was arrested without incident because he didn't make an incident. Pretty simple. Jacob Blake, the black body that K. Edward Copeland is talking about, did resist arrest. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they actually tried to, he was resisting to such a degree that they tried to tase him, and somehow the taser didn't quite, connect, and he kept coming. He kept running. And he had a knife in his hand. And he was heading to a car that the police officers were aware contained other people. In fact, I think they were children. Now, the police officer, I suppose he could have assumed, well, he's not going to hurt the kids. I know he's resisting arrest. He looks crazy. He's got a knife. He's not stopping with the taser. Yeah, he's probably fine. He's just going to go for a drive or say goodbye to his children. I suppose the officer could have done that. But let's just be reasonable here. They don't know what he's going to do. They don't know this guy. And the things they do know about the guy, they don't look that good. And so he was shot. He was arrested with incident because he made an incident. He made a scene. And we've seen many videos, and of course we could go through all of them, all of this kind of stuff, of other people, a lot of them black, making a scene at arrest. And then there's incidents. Right? And so K. Edward Copeland, maybe he's just not intelligent enough to know the difference, right? Maybe that would actually be better, right? That'd be better if he wasn't intentionally lying to you to try to trick you into feeling sorry for him and joining him with his kingdom diversity and all this kind of stuff. It would be worse if he's just lying to you. He actually does possess the intelligence to know the difference, but he's just not telling you about that. That'd be worse. But it actually doesn't matter because he's culpable either way. You see, this is the problem that we have. We've got these stories, and of course they're shown to us in a very particular way. And you would think that a Christian writing for a Christian organization with Christian editors would be able to say, yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. But that's not the kind of publication Gospel Coalition is. It's not enough for them to be worthless. They've actually got to be less than worthless. They actually have to damage your mind. And so they publish stuff like this. You see, this guy decided, I'm not going down without a fight. Police officers are here, and I'm going to do what I got to do. That's what this guy decided. And this guy decided, I don't think I did anything wrong. The police officers are here. I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go with them. And that's the story. That's the story. Now, culturally, this is actually significant because part of hood culture, in case you don't know, is there's a heavy emphasis put on getting respect, right? You've heard it in the rap songs, the rappers, they all about respect. Put some respect on it. You need to keep respect. And one way to get respect, and in case you don't know, I'm here to tell you, you can go listen to O-Dog if you want. He'll tell you the same thing. He's definitely more well-versed in hood culture than I am, but I'm somewhat versed in it. One of the ways you get respect is by kind of showing your heart, showing you got fight in you. You're not just going to be a victim, right? And it's not about like being the toughest guy in the room, being able to beat everybody else up. It's not really about that. What it's about, though, is showing that you're not just going to lay down, right? You're not going down without a fight. And so if you're in prison, let's just say, and prison, works this way, whether you're white or black or Hispanic or whatever, like, you don't have to win every fight to get respect in prison, right? But you do have to fight. In fact, I remember one time I was I was watching this British guy. It was this nerdy-looking British guy who was talking to some prisoners in the United States. And the prisoner was telling him that, when you come into the jail, into the room, that you got to get a few rounds in. You got to fight. And that's how they'll find out if you're a snitch or you're not a snitch, that kind of thing. See what kind of guy you are. And the British guy was perplexed by this. He says, how are you going to find out if this guy's a snitch or not based on a fight? Like, what do you mean? That doesn't seem to make any sense to him. But to all the prisoners, it made perfect sense, right? It made perfect sense because you get respect by being willing to fight. Now, you're going to lose that fight probably, but you get respect by going down fighting, going down swinging. And this is part of hood culture. This is part of black culture. Now, this might perplex you as a middle class, suburban white person. That's something that's very important. Getting respect in that way. Because we have other ways in middle class, suburbia to get respect, right? There's different ways. And respect is not really something that we really talk about too much. It's not really it's not something that we're emphasizing. But in hood culture, it is something. So when you get confronted by a police officer, the reason you fight, even knowing you can't win, like sometimes you watch these arrest videos, like you see someone get arrested at the airport, right? And there's 6 cops around them. There's nowhere for them to go, and they resist arrest. It's like, what do you think is going to happen? You're obviously going to be arrested, and they'll even beg with you. You're going to catch more charges. Stop resisting. You're going to catch. They don't care about the charges. They just don't want to go down like a wuss. They want to go down fighting. That's how they get respect. At least that's what they were taught. And so there's a lot going on here culturally. And, you might say, "Oh, you're racist." I really don't care. You can say what you want. This is just the truth. And, K. Edward Copeland, he could actually do a great service to Gospel Coalition readers by explaining some of this stuff, right? Explaining some of the differences and things like that. But no. He's either just lying to you so that you go along with his stupid plans, or he's not bright enough to understand the difference. I don't know which one. I've got my theory on K. Edward Copeland. I think K. Edward Copeland is smart enough to know the difference. I think K. Edward Copeland chooses to lie to his audience in order to get you to feel sorry for him so that he can be listened to for his stupid diversity ideas, get opportunities to get some sweet, sweet speaking fees and honorariums, and be the star of 2020 Gospel Coalition, where all diversity was all the rage, and you got to listen to black bodies and all this kind of stuff. I think that's his angle. I don't think he's too stupid there are people that are too stupid to understand the difference, right? I don't think K. Edward Copeland is one of them. That's my theory. Now, maybe he is. Maybe he just doesn't understand the difference. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But there you go. There you go. Do I think that this culture is racially innate in black people? I don't think that. I don't think it's in their DNA somehow. That's just not what I believe. Now, maybe you've got some studies. I don't know. I'm open to talking about it. I'm not going to hate you for saying that. I'm just not. But this is definitely part of the culture. And this is, of course, for any Christian, part of the culture that you need to reject. Right? You need to reject this. You don't get any respect from the Lord in reality for being a brawler. You just don't. That's just not where it comes from. Now, I think you need to be willing to fight and able to protect yourself and your family and things like that. I think that there's some respect to be had there. But it's situational. You know what I mean? It's situational, obviously. We've got more to cover because there's an interesting article by Shai Linne, the rapper, about similar kinds of things, about how he feels sad and his heart is heavy because, you know, when he was younger, you know, white people would cross the street when he was coming and stuff like that. And I've got some interesting things to say about that as well. And it reminds me of Joel Webbin getting into trouble about what he said. Oh, he's got to have the talk with his kids and stuff like that. You know, you always hear about the black talk that they have with their kids, you know, about being with the police and all this kind of stuff. And apparently not enough of them are having that talk. But anyway, but there's also the white talk about this situation. And I think that's an interesting thing to kick around too, because there's a lot of cultural things that come into play there as well. You know, Shai Linne, his little heart is hurting, but, you know, honestly, again, like just similar to this, you know, you got to take some responsibility as well for yourself and how you present yourself and things like that. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Unless something changes over at Gospel Coalition, maybe something will change. There'll be a better article on their cover page. Let's check it out. Maybe they've changed it. Missionaries must decrease. Why everything never feels like enough. Medievalism isn't the answer to modernity. Add cultural apologetics to your evangelism toolkit. And of course, can you have too much therapy? Well, there you go. In any case, I hope you found this video helpful, encouraging, and also entertaining. God bless.